What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down a quarterback who I feel has the strongest arm in college football. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you are a QB or a wide receiver and would like to train with myself and my staff of coaches this offseason, we are going to be traveling out to 12 more states across the country for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. Next up on our camp tour, we'll be coming out to Charlotte, North Carolina. That camp is completely sold out. But then we'll be coming out to Dallas, the DMV, St. Louis, Honolulu, Boston, Cleveland, Austin, Seattle, Newark, Denver, and Los Angeles. So if you guys want some more information on that, how you can sign up, what we'll be covering at the camp, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you there. Let's get started with this video. So now we're going to be breaking down the throwing mechanics of Joe Milton. Quarterback is a transfer to the University of Tennessee, and he has got a rocket of an arm. So this is a throw that I'm sure everybody saw. This looks like just a simple flick of the wrist, and he throws this thing about 60 yards, I would say. Maybe a little bit under 60 yards, but it looks effortless, right? So how is he able to do this? So obviously he's a very big guy. Obviously your size certainly helps with arm strength. The strength in your legs and your core is what's most important, though. And obviously having a good throwing sequence, because we're going to show a clip here after this one of Joe Milton in high school, and he has horrible mechanics in high school. Terrible mechanics. And, he might still have a strong arm. That ball might shoot off of his hands, but that's not going to be consistent, and that's not going to be sustainable. I'm trying to get you guys to have the strongest arm possible, but to have it be sustainable. You to be able to throw that ball with consistent velocity and distance every single time, not throw it far for 10 and then your arm starts to hurt. So throw power, being able to throw it far, comes from a couple different things. It comes, number one, from the ability to generate torque. So torque comes from a term called hip and shoulder dissociation. Essentially, that's a fancy term for saying that you want to separate your shoulders and your hips. You want your hips to be able to drive through the throw as your shoulders stay back and stay loaded. So it's almost like a coil. It's almost like you're pulling a ripcord and that arm shoots through. So to be able to get to the most optimal position to throw the ball with max distance, max velocity, you need to have your weight loaded onto your back leg. So you want to maybe have about 60 to 65% loaded to your back leg when you are in your throwing base. Reason why you want to get to this position is because you being here allows you to take that 65 on that back leg and transfer it to the front leg. You want to be able to drive off of your back quad and shift that weight through. So when you shift that weight to your front leg, that can cause your hips to rotate through. A lot of quarterbacks think like, oh, coach, should I push off of my back foot? Should I drive off my leg and then rotate my hips? Or should I just worry about rotating my hips? The answer is both. You shifting that weight from that loaded position, that 65% position on that back leg to the front leg, will naturally cause those hips to rotate through. Now, for us to be able to generate torque, while I shift that weight through, I need to make sure that I'm getting my front foot down. So you need to make sure that it is a drive off of the quad, not the foot. One of the common mistakes that quarterbacks will make is that they will get to this base where that back foot is under their shoulder, but they push off of the inside arch of their foot like a pitcher. And all that does is lengthen the stride. And in this clip from Joe Milton when he was in high school, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about, because that's one of his main mechanical flaws. However, it looks like he's just shifting the weight. It's a drive off of the quad, and that is what will get that front foot to go down. Now, while you are doing this with your lower body and you're shifting your weight through, shifting the weight to the front side, you have to stay loaded or closed, as I like to say, with your front shoulder to be able to generate torque. Throw power, throw distance, throw velocity is a lot like hitting a baseball. As a quarterback, we are rotational athletes. To take pressure off of my arm and to let my hips and my legs make the throw, I need to be able to separate that upper and lower body. Very similar to that baseball swing, like I said. So when you're hitting a baseball, and let's say he's holding a baseball bat right here, and he takes a step with his front foot in the batter's box, does he open up, when he steps, does the bat come through at the same time? No, he keeps the bat loaded back. He steps, and what does he do? He pivots off the back foot to bring the bat through, because that's how we create that whip and that rotational force. It's like a chain reaction. That's what torque is. So same thing when throwing a football. I need to shift the weight through, but I need to keep that front shoulder loaded. They call this position opposite equal. It doesn't need to be a perfect L. Some guys like to hold it lower. Some guys like to hold it higher, but I just need some kind of a backstroke position where your front shoulder is closed posed and loaded to the target. Because now, because I'm rotating through and I'm transferring that weight, those hips can rotate through before the ball. And when the ball is trailing your back hip, that is the optimal position for power and to be able to generate torque. Now, one of the main mistakes, because I think a lot of quarterbacks know to get to that position. Shoulders go back, hips are going through. You've all seen Dak Prescott do that like QB walk drill before. That's what that's for. However, when we go to make this throw, so many quarterbacks have an improper base. They don't have that 65%. They'll have like almost 65% onto their front side. Now, the reason why that's a problem, or some guys have like an overly wide base where their feet are super far outside their frame. Now, the reason why that's a problem, when you don't have weight loaded to your back leg, when your weight isn't shifted back like so, you're not going to be able to drive your hips through. You're going to have all your weight forward, which is going to prevent you from rotating your shoulders because your weight has essentially already transferred. The reason why he has his weight loaded back here is because that weight can transfer to the front leg to promote the hip drive, but also so it's easier to rotate his shoulders back. You guys could all try this right now. Stand on literally on one foot, and let's say you're a righty. Let's say it's your throwing side foot, your right foot. Try to rotate your shoulders back. Have all your weight on your right foot. Very easy to rotate your upper body. Now stand with all your weight on your front foot. Very hard to rotate your shoulders back and get some rotation this way. And that's solely because of where your base is. So if we can get to this position, that allows us to get to that dissociation. Shoulders separated, hips going through, and that's the optimal position for power, but also keeping your arm healthy. Because there are a lot of guys. You see it. Great example is Clemson quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei. I believe that's how you say his last name. But anyways, you watch him in high school. He had awful throwing mechanics. He's kind of fixed them now that he's at Clemson and he's, getting a little bit older and, probably working with a great quarterback coach. But you watch his mechanics in high school, terrible. Awful. And it wasn't healthy on his arm. But he was throwing the ball 70 yards, so everybody was like, well, I'm not going to say anything. He's throwing the ball 70 yards. Nobody cared to fix it, right? Why fix what isn't broken, essentially? But you see when he made that jump to the next level, didn't keep working as much, right? And I'm sure that he probably had a very, very sore arm more often than not because that type of throwing is not sustainable. My goal is to get you guys sustained throw power. So let's watch this clip one more time. Just an easy flick of the wrist. And that's how you can get that. That easy flick of the wrist, deep ball. You see Aaron Rodgers do it all the time. He's not putting his whole body into it because he has good mechanics. He understands the concept of being a rotational athlete. So let's look at this clip here from Milton in high school. And this is an absolute rip. This is like an out route. He's almost on like he's in the middle of the field. This is like a late out route that's probably 5, 10, 15, 20, like a 25-yard throw. This is an insane ball, right? Maybe like a 30-yard throw because he dropped back. But that's an insane ball that finished with an insane amount of velocity off of his hands. But obviously, his mechanics were a little bit off. So you see when he's throwing, watch what happens with the front stride. Because this is where all the pressure on the shoulder and the elbow come from. If you're a quarterback who struggles with arm pain, elbow pain, bicep pain, check your throwing mechanics. Film yourself. See how this looks like from your own throwing motion angle, I guess you could say. So watch what he does here. Long stride. So what happens to that back foot? Gets super wide. Look where his weight is. Forward. Look where his front shoulder is. Forward. So what ends up happening is he's throwing this thing all arm. You see how his hip is trailing back and the elbow and the shoulder are leading the throwing plane. That throw has no legs or hips involved. But now Joe Milton's a very big guy. He's got an incredibly strong arm. Or he's just an incredibly strong kid. So that ball's going to have some velocity. But this release time, this long stride, the mechanics, this is not consistent. And at the next level, when everybody is fast, you're not playing maybe a team full of scrubs or just regular high school kids, that ain't going to fly. Because that long stride, long throwing motion is going to take too long. And we see it time and time again, fellas. Because again, this comes from pushing off of that back foot. Because you see his base is in the exact same spot. He's holding the ball the exact same way, but he pushes off of the foot. And that push off of the foot creates the long stride. And when you don't have that front foot, like if that front foot got down right there and his shoulders were closed, his hips would be able to lead. Your throwing sequence, the optimal position or the optimal sequence for power should be front stride down, then hips through, the shoulders are loaded back, then the shoulders come through, and then the ball. But because we push off of the back foot, because we have the long stride, the front foot gets down, but now the hips are unable to rotate because that back leg is extended. So it's going to be front foot, then the shoulders go through, then the ball, and then your hips trail behind. Hips are non-existent in this. And this is where guys get elbow pain, get shoulder pain. Maybe they start dipping their head, pulling their elbow down, and this release point gets at a very inconsistent spot. So this is not sustainable. These mechanics that I'm showing you right now, not sustainable. And again, like I've said time and time again, fellas, that is the goal. I want you to be able to throw darts every single throw, not 10 throws and then your arm starts to gas out, and it comes from the lower body. But again, this goes to show like that he's worked on this. He's way ahead of the curve because a lot of quarterbacks that have this natural gifted arm talent, arm strength, ability, obviously a good athlete, obviously could play at a high level because he played at Michigan. So many guys just scoop by with that. Coaches won't tell them this. They're afraid. They're almost afraid to tell them that. Like, oh, this guy's a 4-star, 5-star recruit. I'm not going to try to correct his mechanics. We can always get more efficient. There's a reason why professionals in the offseason train. There's a reason why Tom Brady will fly guys up to Montana and have a full-fledged training camp in the offseason, at least when he was with the Patriots, and go through all this stuff and work on his mechanics and work on timing routes, because you could always get better. You can't just be content. There's so many players out there that are content, and you can never be content at the quarterback position because that is how you will get passed up. It is a cutthroat position because there can only be one of you. So let's play this thing again full speed, and then we're going to look at one more throw here from Joe Milton and show the corrected mechanics, and this is probably one of his more recent throws. So I just want to showcase this. This is kind of a tougher angle to see, but this is the most effortless, like 50-yard throw that I've ever seen. But he's just kind of just rocking back and forth, takes a baby hitch, and is able to fling this thing 50 yards. Like, that is super impressive because what's it going to be like when he actually has to throw this ball? But let's take a look at his mechanics, right? Because a lot of young quarterbacks who are trying to throw the ball further, trying to throw it deep, will have that long stride like we saw from Joe Milton in the 7-on-7 clip. But watch where he's at now. And look how smooth this looks. Because quarterbacks, you got to understand, there is also like an eye test element to your throwing mechanics. Everybody talks about the eye test in terms of height. Like, okay, he's 6'3", 225, that's a quarterback. He looks like a quarterback, right? Then you look at a guy who's maybe 5'10", 175. You're like, okay, he doesn't really pass the eye test. He better be damn good on film. So that's the same thing with your throwing motion. Does he have the right mechanics, or does he have a big overstride, a big lean? What does he look like throwing the ball? Because trust me, people are getting more and more educated on throwing mechanics because there's a lot more information out there on that. So watch when he goes to make this throw. You see where his back foot is under his frame? Does it look like he's pushing off the back foot? No. That front stride is getting down right now. It's a shift off of his back leg. His shoulders are staying back. Watch this throwing sequence. Remember in the throwing sequence, your front foot gets down. What has to come through next? The hips. And the hips come through. Ball is trailing behind the hips. That takes all that pressure off that shoulder and that elbow. And you see, he's able to throw that ball 50 yards. Fellas, it's not about just putting your whole body into it. Can I be consistent, and can I have sustainable arm strength? That is the number one key. Let's play this thing again full speed one more time. This is a great example of Milton's throwing mechanics, and I hope he has a big year this year. Hope he gets I hope he gets a starting job. I know he's probably competing with the incoming freshman, but that's an insane ball and an effortless throw, and I hope you all can learn from that. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you'd like to come train with us in 12 different states this offseason, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you out to one of our training camps. I'll see you guys next time.